talking about the overall accomplishments of your agency, the positive impact that you're having on families, that's what people need to hear. The second we become a family caregiver, it becomes overwhelming, right? So to really be able to be that advocate, to share how you're helping families really helps you win in your markets, because it's not just about referrals, and you can't make people care about someone else's mother. Either you care or you don't, and you can't fake that. I feel like you can feel when people are trying to help you and they care about you.
You're listening to Home Care Hindsight, the podcast where we talk with home care leaders about the big mistakes they've made and the even bigger lessons they've learned along the way. I'm David Knack, head of sales here at Zengage, and I've built a career on the idea that we learn a whole lot more from our mistakes than from our successes, which is great because I've made a lot of mistakes. I've gotten to know some of the leaders in this industry who've built amazing businesses and are super well respected. So I thought it'd be fun, instead of asking them about the great things they've accomplished, to have them tell the story of one of the biggest mistakes that they've made and how that mistake changed their thinking and the way they run their business. Welcome back to another episode of Home Care Hindsight, brought to you by Zengage. I'm joined today by Nancy Gillette. Nancy, welcome to the show.
Hi, thanks for having me, David.
Nancy, for people who are not familiar with you, how would you introduce yourself?
Well, I'm Nancy Gillette. I'm the Chief Growth Officer at Pocket RN, but I come from the industry, so I have spent the better part of over 20 years working in both Medicare certified home health and home care.
You guys talk a lot about this guide program. I know people have heard about that. Can you tell me what the guide program is and why people are talking about it right now?
Yeah, I'd love to. So GUIDE stands for Guiding an Improved Dementia Experience. It is a new initiative out of the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid's Innovation Center. And it's a program that's the first of its kind, really designed to support not only patients with dementia, but their family caregivers. And one of the coolest parts about the program is it's completely free.
Okay. What's home care's place within GUIDE? Talk to me about the stakeholders. What's the patient journey through the GUIDE program? How does home care get involved? Who else does home care need to know how to work with?
Yeah, absolutely. So the GUIDE program has 9 care delivery domains. One of the 9 care delivery domains is respite care. And so families and patients who have moderate to severe complexity dementia and a family caregiver can qualify for 72 hours a year in respite care. And so as a virtual nursing company, we don't provide respite care. And so we partner with the broader home care industry all across all 50 states, where they become a partner of Pocket RN to be able to provide that respite care on our behalf. And what's amazing about that is that we are the Medicare provider. So we deal with all the Medicare rules and regulations and compliance, and the home care agencies become our partner, and then we become the payer source and the referral source to them. So they don't have to worry about dealing with Medicare at all. And when you work with Pocket RN, we are one of the participants in the GUIDE program. We have a model of care where when we match a nurse to a family, that family has a nurse for life. So as long as all their visits are proactively scheduled, they'll be working with that same nurse throughout their entire journey. And families really love having that continuity of care. So the first thing that happens is once we get a referral, we check the eligibility for Medicare, and then our team does a welcome call with the family. And then we schedule a comprehensive assessment to be done with our nurse. And so the nurse is really creating a dementia plan of care for this individual. The next thing that happens is care planning. So the nurses are really trying to understand what the families need. Do they have their advanced directives in place? Have they really thought about what they want to occur in the next 3, 5, 7 years with their loved one in dementia? Do they want to have home care? Do they want to stay in their private home? Is senior living on the table? So there's a lot of that advocacy and navigation that's also included in the program, which is so super beneficial. And I think people don't always recognize how important having that advocate is along your journey. There's caregiver education. So we partnered with Navon, who, as you know, does a lot of paid agency caregiver training. But we had this crazy idea, let's turn this training upside down on its head and make it more family facing, so that for families that needed to have dementia education, maybe in the middle of the night, could we create modules that they could use to be able to understand how to de-escalate a behavior, for example? And so families have loved that, and that's all included. It's all free. So we have definitely seen a lot of families really benefiting from having this support for their loved one.
Sounds amazing. I would love to not have to deal with Medicare. It seems complicated. And like 72 hours is not nothing, but it's kind of a small amount of care. It's useful that it's covered. It's useful that it's not something that the family's having to do out of pocket. But walk me through kind of how some of the home care partners that you work with view those kinds of opportunities. Is it just 72 hours or is there like opportunity for expansion of that account over time?
Oh, there's tons of opportunity. So a lot of people that are coming to us in the guide model of care have never had a single hour of care from any home care agency. Mm-hmm. They've never had a respite stay in a senior living community. A lot of times these families are navigating the journey alone. What we see happening is that once people are using these Medicare dollars, what I call a free trial for home care, and they have an amazing caregiver and they start to get that feeling of how much relief home care provides. Families, if they can, and they have the resources too, they're signing up for private pay hours. The other thing that happens is we're also oftentimes identifying veterans who could potentially get hours through the VA and they don't even know about it. And so a big part of that care navigation is really making sure families understand that there's other programs that they could potentially qualify for, and we help them qualify.
You've answered every single question I've ever had about the guide program. I know everything I need to about it. So thanks. This has been a good episode. Talk to you later. No, instead, I bring people on this show who've accomplished a lot of stuff, and I ask them about the biggest mistake that they've made in their career and what that mistake taught them about life or about business. So anyways, Nancy, what's your big mistake?
I think one of my big mistakes as someone who has built and grown multiple businesses is I really never promoted myself. I didn't try to brand myself as the engine behind the growth.
Yeah.
I used to always want to sort of quietly win. As I moved forward in my career, I started realizing that people really had no idea all of the things that I had accomplished. And I've seen some of my colleagues do a phenomenal job at really branding themselves as a marketable asset. That was a lesson learned for me that quietly winning can be nice. Really, opportunities present themselves when people know what you have done and what you have accomplished. And so I've really tried to make that a personal mission in the last couple of years.
I am totally sympathetic to, and this is probably rich coming from somebody who like runs a podcast every week. The saying is real G's move in silence like lasagna. Walk me through the reason that is it, I wanted to let the success speak for itself. Like as you kind of Monday morning quarterback and look back, like why didn't you brand yourself? Why didn't you like be a little bit louder about your accomplishments?
You know, I think I just wanted to win without letting my competitors know what I was up to. You know, I didn't always brag about all the partnerships that were in place or all the people that we were working with or how fast we were growing, just because I wanted to quietly win. And sometimes I felt like the more my competition knew what I was up to, it would be easier for them to sort of follow in those footsteps. Yeah. And it was more important for the company to have the overall win than it was for me. I definitely, you know, as I had navigated through different opportunities as time went on, realized that a lot of the industry had no idea what I was up to or how involved I was in that growth. And so it was a personal lesson.
Okay, this is an opportunity to right or wrong. What's the biggest win you had that nobody knows about?
I think the biggest win right now, I think people are starting to know about it, but this national network of providers that I have been able to build since July 1st is pretty significant. We have over 2,000 locations under contract with Pocket RN for Guide, and I've been able to build that pretty much myself since July 1st of last year. I definitely have help with my CEO, Jenna. She's amazing, and so I definitely have to give her some credit too, but we have pretty much single-handedly done that together.
How many providers did you guys have in network?
Over 2,000.
No, June 30th of 2025.
No one was really under contract in June. We had done a self-funded pilot and we were not even live with Guide. So we really started getting these contracts signed for July 1 of 2025.
Yeah, that's a big win. So thanks for celebrating that. What's the biggest change that you've seen in kind of your success and the business's success as you've started to like be louder about your own wins?
Since January 1, I have been traveling all over the country speaking. I've been invited to places like on your podcast. People want to hear what I have to say, and I have definitely been busy. So I've rarely been home this whole entire year. And I think that's been a humongous shift in my personal career that I've always had a lot to say, but now I'm actually being asked to come and talk about these
Yeah.
programs and really share the insights and not just the program itself, but all of the success of the program, right? This
Yeah.
is a game changer for the industry. That's definitely been the biggest shift for me personally.
For a home care agency owner who's listening to this and is like, I get it, I'm the face of the business, like, but I've got a lot of other stuff. I don't want to just be out there bragging and being self-promotional. What are some of the like kind of low-hanging fruit or some of the biggest changes that you could see somebody making that would change things for them?
Yeah, I mean, no one wants to brag about their success, but I think talking about the overall accomplishments of your agency, the positive impact that you're having on families, that's what people need to hear. To me, working in the personal care space, being that advocate, supporting individuals in their journey, helping them have better outcomes. It is a very complex healthcare system out there. And even those of us that are in it, the second we become a family caregiver, it becomes overwhelming, right? So
Yeah.
to really be able to be that advocate, to share how you're helping families really helps you win in your markets because it's not just about referrals. And I say this often and regularly, but you can teach anyone anything about this business. You can't make people care about someone else's mother. Either you care or you don't, and you can't fake that. I feel like you can feel when people are trying to help you and they care about you. And so I think that's a big part of being successful and really being able to market yourself.
I like that. You can teach anybody about this business, but you can't make them care for somebody else's mom. That's really well said. I will also just kind of double click on when one of the things that I often hear are generic brags about the business. We have the best caregivers and we do the best training and we provide the best care and we love our clients. Get super specific about your brags. Even if somebody doesn't have the exact same situation as what you're describing, but can relate to it, that is going to be better than, oh yeah, well, we work with a lot of dementia clients. Oh no, this reminds me, we had this client the other week and there was this new behavior that had emerged that was really stressful for the family. And all of a sudden, like they were really aggressive when they hadn't been before. And the caregiver, through the training that we delivered, was able to do this thing and this thing and this thing. And the result was we were able to like head off that behavior and get it under control, but also equip the family so that when they were taking care of mom, they were able to do the same kind of thing. Somebody may not have that behavior. They may have a completely different set of problems, but the specificity of the thing, even though it's not exactly what they're looking at, is way better than saying, oh yeah, a lot of our clients have the problem that you just described. Having one person they can look at, I find in my experience, is a much more compelling story than, oh, well, we work with lots of clients with dementia.
Oh, totally. I mean, we have a partnership with a company called Memory Lane Games, right? And Memory Lane Games has over 3,000 games for people with dementia. And they tell the story about a patient that was nonverbal for over 3 years and started with the Memory Lane Games and within a week had started saying, wait, I'm from Manchester, England, and I know that place, and that's where I met your dad. And literally tells this amazing story about how just having something that went back into the long-term memory had someone who was nonverbal for 3 years. And my friend said to me, I literally realized I got my mom back in that moment. Like those are powerful stories, right? And those are the kind of things that are going to separate you from your competition in the market.
Yeah, big time. I was fortunate in part of my career to work with some music therapists and similar, right? There's a real connection between music and long-term memory and being able to kind of find the person that's still in there, but you don't always get to see in cases of dementia. So those kinds of things are really powerful and, are opportunities in the market to really differentiate yourself. Okay. Tell me about something that you think is underrated in the industry. It's big, but people don't know about it.
I'm going to go back to this guide model because I think what happens with home care owners is they see the respite rate that Medicare is paying. And they're saying, well, it's not my private pay rate. And I say it's not an apples to apples comparison. There is a seismic shift happening right now in the home care industry. Coming from the Medicare certified home healthcare world, I've been in a lot of preferred provider arrangements with health systems, hospitals, ACOs, and there've been rooms full of people collaborating to talk about how we were really going to work together to have good outcomes for patients. And you know who was never included in the room? Home care. Ever. And people used to look me straight in the eye and say, home care is not health care. And I used to say, boy, are you wrong. So, right now, the fact that Medicare is putting any dollars at all into home care, even though 72 hours isn't tons, it's more than they've ever done before.
Yeah.
And I think it's a seismic shift. I think it's actually the first time that home care is being recognized for being there the other 20 hours of the day or the 23 hours of the day when the nurse from home health is not there anymore, right? And home care does so many valuable things. So I do think that it's an underrated thought. I say the more we can prove back to Medicare that this virtual clinical nursing overlay with amazing in-person caregiving is a game changer. The outcomes are already proving itself to be true, but it is a game changer. And the more we have that data to go back to Medicare, I think there's going to be a lot more programs that are really going to support the industry as a whole and hopefully increase the amount of hours, maybe increase the hourly rates. But, the data has to speak for itself. So the more participation that we have, the more successful we'll be to move the industry right into the center of the ecosystem for healthcare.
I like too that the way to think about this is prior to the guide model, Medicare was never paying for home care.
Nothing.
This is not like, okay, well, we used to get 36 hours and now we get 72 hours. We got 0 hours and we went from 0 to 72. And I'm not super good at math, but it's hard to do the percent increase from 0 to 72 because of how math works. But that tells me like, this is the first of many things to come.
Yes.
And so I think like, the onus is on home care, first of all, to be like a good partner and to help prove outcomes and get into, when you're in the room with ACOs, it's accountable care organizations, they're taking on risk. If a hospitalization happens, it comes back on their dime. These shared risk models with Medicare Advantage plans and stuff like that's where the industry's headed. So home care needs to be a good collaborative partner in being able to provide the data and prove the outcomes and prevent the bad stuff from happening. But also, it's probably not going to stay at 72 hours a year forever. I mean, where do you see 3 years from now, 5 years from now, where do you see Medicare and home care going?
Yeah, I wish I had a crystal ball. I would hope that they would add
you don't?
more. I don't, unfortunately, but I think they'll potentially add more hours. At least I hope that they will. But the other thing is that there are new models of care that are being developed as we speak. I think the Rural Transformation Grant money could potentially also benefit home care quite a bit. And so I think that value-based care, from what I'm seeing at a very 10,000 foot overview of what's happening, is coming to home care. Yeah. And there's going to be a lot more opportunity for home care agencies to collaborate with Medicare providers like Pocket RN in the future. And I think that by 3 years from now, there'll be several of these programs already in play.
What do you see as the biggest mindset shifts that need to happen to prepare home care agencies to be like an actual healthcare provider?
Yeah, I always tell this story. When I was on the Medicare certified side, I worked in Arizona, and we were one of the 9 states that were voluntold that we were going to be in value-based care and that we needed to reduce hospitalizations and star ratings and all the things. Back then, I was a liaison, and so I would coordinate bringing home care into my congestive heart failure patients, which typically weren't home care patients, right? But I would bring them into the mix because I knew that this population was highly rehospitalized very quickly, and I needed additional eyes on these families. And a lot of them were rehospitalized, and a light bulb went off for me about 10, 15 years ago. And the light bulb was that the plan of care told the caregiver to weigh the patient, but it never told them what to do when the weight went up or down. What I learned early on back then was that we need to educate our caregivers on the non-medical interventions that are still well within their scope of practice to keep people safe at home. And that is not really education that exists typically today. Like low salt diet is the one that I always talk about. A lot of these caregivers are preparing meals for these families. And if they're creating salty foods and you have congestive heart failure, you created an exacerbation, right? And so I do think that what I've heard from agencies is, well, we want to stay within our scope of practice. And I'm like, you have to look at the interventions that are within your control, that are within your scope of practice, and create education and support and teaching around those things in order to really be moving into the healthcare ecosystem.
I think another example that I hear pretty frequently is how home care can be a good collaborative partner in the therapy process. So can they create the rehab plan? No. But can they, as a part of their plan of care, do those exercises or have the client do those exercises every time they're there? Yeah. And that's the kind of thing that PT, speech, OT sees as the value of personal care. But when home care is staunchly non-medical, we lose the opportunity to reinforce and add value to what home health is doing and what PT, speech, OT is doing. And so those are the kinds of things that I see as like really low-hanging fruit. And candidly, like, you've got a lot of hours that you're in the home in many cases. And there's a great opportunity to enrich the care plan by taking the stuff that other disciplines are bringing in and making sure that it happens as much as it's supposed to.
It's really about being a collaborative partner, right? All moving in the right direction, in the same direction to support that individual in their journey to live as independently as possible wherever in the spectrum that might be. And that means supporting the home health side of things and making sure that the clients are doing their home exercise program, right? And we also know, even with dementia patients, that, when people are moving and they're getting some level of exercise, that actually slows the progression of dementia. So, I mean, there's a lot of positive effects to both sides of the industry working together.
That kind of makes me think, what are a couple of things that you guys have learned about caring for dementia patients that you feel like many times home care agencies are out of the loop on?
I don't know that they're out of the loop, but I think understanding the family dynamics, making sure that they are collaborating with all the other providers, making sure these patients are still going to see their physicians. A lot of times it's really easy to just say, I'm not going to take them to a doctor's appointment, but those follow-up appointments can be so critical. We at Pocket RN, we're never trying to replace in-person physicians or in-person clinicians. We collaborate with, we fill the gaps in between. We always say that healthcare is those millions of little moments in between scheduled appointments when it's hard to reach somebody else. And so we're there to fill those gaps. And I think that, home care just really needs to become part of the village in the ecosystem.
Well, we talked about a big mistake that you made in your career, but what's a little mistake that you see home care owners make all the time? And if they quit, it'd make their lives, their businesses like 10 times better.
I think, that having the right sales and business development individuals is extremely important. I also think that looking for the right kinds of referrals is important. I've had owners say to me, well, they don't agree with my philosophy on this, which is totally fine. But, if you have way too many hospice clients and they come on service, they don't stay very long. They're not super sticky. And I always would feel like a hamster in a wheel. You're always reinventing yourself. And so when you are looking for those dementia clients and those Parkinson's clients that have something that is only going to get worse over time, they tend to be more sticky. And so I think that's one mistake that I see home care operators not really focusing on, getting the right kinds of referrals. Not all referrals are good referrals for anyone in healthcare.
I've got some follow-up questions here. First, you said the right business development person, because there's probably more wrong than there is right in this. What's the wrong kind of business development person?
I think people that are very transactional, that think that this is just easy money, because again, I'm going to go back to you can't fake caring. This is a highly personal sale, right? There is not a single person that has ever said, today I want to wake up and need home care from my mom. We are all in an industry that no one wants to ever need to use us. And so that compassion and that empathy and that kindness has to shine through, because if people feel like a number, they're not going to choose you. And we see that a lot.
One of the things that I think about is you can hire a compassionate person, but the job design can lead to them becoming a compassion fatigued person. And this is a lot of where kind of our motivation to get into the AI agent for scheduling, for lots of other problems that exist in home care, is because the volume of stuff that has to get done and the number of ways that things can go wrong in home care can really be exhausting. How do you think about making sure that we remain caring people? Because I think most people get into home care, like there's easier places to make money. Most people get into home care because they have the right motivation. How have you seen people like stay in touch with that guiding motivation, that reason they got into home care, and remain like a compassionate, empathetic person?
I think being close to the care managers that are in the office that are telling you the stories of the impact that has been made is critical. You can find that burnout, right? You can always feel like you're chasing after your goals and your KPIs. And it's sometimes hard to, especially when you do it all day, every day, to not be like another family, right? But when you are close to the impact that you're making and you know that these families are relying on you and they're so grateful, and most all of them are, and they tell you how they don't know what they would have done without your support and the agency's support, I feel like that's the way to continue to be engaged, because the stories are unbelievable. And you just realize, like, if this family didn't have us, they would be in such a bad situation right now. And so I feel like that's a good way to keep yourself motivated.
I really like that. I think it's also like, it can either be hard and that be the problem, or it can be hard and it's worth it, right? Like, yes. And I think a lot of this comes down to the culture that you're building and the way that you're messaging this stuff. But like, the fact that it's hard can either be a bug or a feature. Mm-hmm. It's hard, I want to quit. Everybody's felt that. But it's hard, and here's why it's worth it, is I think the kind of thing that you have to create opportunities as a team to take a step back and say, here's the work that we did, but here's the outcome that we delivered. I think everybody would agree. When the work that we put in and here's the outcome we got is we had to follow up on 47 missing clock-ins and 45 of those caregivers were there on time and they just hadn't touched the button. I don't know that that's going to lead to a reduction in burnout, because that seems miserable. But when the work is genuinely human and is also hard, I think that's where home care really thrives.
I totally agree. And I think that self-care for the individuals that are working in home care has to be prioritized. Yeah. I feel like it can be easy to get burnt out, and that taking a couple of days off and getting a massage or going to the beach or doing something that you love to do or just hanging out with your kids is so super important. And I think sometimes we get so wrapped up in the day-to-day that a lot of times, especially the agency owners, are not prioritizing their own personal health and wellness. And that makes it really easy to burn out. And so I always encourage people, obviously you have a business to run, but, have a great trusted right hand that can support you and that you can take a break. I mean, I feel like that's critical to success.
I was at an event and there was some SMART goal stuff, and that's kind of business 101, but it's also something that we get away from and we have to keep coming back to. And so it's like specific, measurable, attainable, R, T, timely. I don't remember what R is. Whatever. I got 4 out of 5. That's 80%. That is a B minus. Come on. Anyways, one of the things that one of the attendees said is, I'm going to go to the gym 100 times this year. And I was like, come on, that is a really good goal. You are not going to win a bodybuilding contest going to the gym 100 times a year. But if you are going to the gym 100 times a year, like, you are moving your body, your brain is going to be happier. That is an awesome goal. And so I agree with you. Like, this doesn't need to be like every Friday we go get a massage. Like, that's not realistic in this business for most people.
Right.
If it is, let me know. I'd love to come work.
I'd love to be in that category.
Yeah, let me know. But I'd love your secret. But we have to find opportunities in the middle of the chaos to take care of ourselves, or else we just don't have the gas in the tank to be able to get where we need to go.
Totally agree.
We've talked about a lot of ways that things can go wrong, but I like to end every episode on a high note. So tell me about something that's happened lately in the business that you're really proud of.
I've been really excited about the network, really seeing the outcomes with home care. I have one agency owner that reached out and said, I just want you to know that I've gotten 5 24/7 private pay referrals as a result of Marketing Guide. I've had some hospital discharge planners tell me, if you're going to take these Medicare patients, I want to send you all the good private pay referrals too. And that's huge. So what I really thought would happen with this program and what's really happening are aligned, which is amazing. And so we're just really excited to move the industry into the center of the healthcare ecosystem.
That's our vision of the future of home care is everybody wants healthcare to happen at home. They don't want to go to the hospital. They don't want to go to the doctor's office. And so obviously there's reasons to go to those places today, but more and more stuff like kidney care, stuff like oncology is happening in the home. Is home care going to become the center of that? I think so, but it's not going to be all home care providers who get invited into what becomes a much more clinical, complex, high acuity, more challenging way to provide care. But like, I totally agree with you, Nancy. That is the future. Okay, before we get out of here, what do you want to plug?
I just want to say, if you know someone who has dementia and Medicare A and B, we would love for you to reach out to us at pocketrn.com. Our goal is to service families all across the United States, and we cover rural America too. So we have 100% of the United States under zip code coverage for respite. I think we're one of the few providers that can say that. And so we'd love to be a resource for you.
Wonderful. And if somebody hears this and is like, I got to get involved with Pocket RN, what's the way for a home care agency to do that?
Yeah, a home care agency can email us at sales@pocketrn.com, or you can go to our website and there's links right on the website where you can reach out to us. And patients and families can email us at guide@pocketrn.com, and you'll go right into the intake queue and someone will reach out to you right away and get the process rolling.
Awesome. Nancy, thank you so much for coming on today. This was a ton of fun.
Thanks for having me. It's great to see you.
On behalf of the team here at Zengage, thanks for listening to the show. We'll be back next week with another episode, so be sure to subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts on Spotify or Apple or YouTube. Leave us a rating while you're there. It helps other people find the show. If you have comments on the show, drop me a line, david@zengage.com. Would love to hear from you, chat with you there.